It was supposed to be just another Tuesday, a day like any other in the quiet, tree-lined suburb of Maple Creek. For David and Sarah Miller, life was good. They had a beautiful home. They had two wonderful children. They had a love story that many of their friends envied. Their life was a picture of suburban happiness. But on this particular Tuesday, that picture was about to be torn apart. The ordinary would become extraordinary. The familiar would become terrifying. A day that began with sunshine and laughter would end in darkness and silence. No one could have predicted the horror that was about to unfold. David Miller was a tech enthusiast. He loved gadgets. He loved cameras. He had set up a small, discreet security system around their home, not because he was paranoid, but because he enjoyed the technology. He liked being able to check on his home from his phone. It was a hobby, a simple way to feel connected and secure. It gave him peace of mind. On this day, one of his cameras would do more than just record an empty hallway. It would capture something unimaginable. It would become the silent, unblinking witness to a crime that would shock the nation and change his life forever. The afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the lawn. The children were at a friend's house. The neighborhood was peaceful. David was on his way home from a business meeting, running a little late. He decided to check his home cameras from his phone, a habit he often indulged in. He expected to see an empty living room. Maybe he would see Sarah moving around, preparing for the evening. Instead, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The screen showed a scene of chaos, a struggle, a stranger in his home. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched, helpless and miles away. He watched in real time. The connection was clear. The images were sharp. He saw his wife, Sarah, fighting for her life. A figure cloaked in shadows was in their home. The camera, once a simple gadget for his amusement, was now a window into a nightmare. He could not hear the sounds. He could only see the frantic movements, the terror frozen on his wife's face. The event was unfolding, live, streamed directly to the palm of his hand. He was a spectator to the most horrific moment of his existence, unable to intervene, unable to scream, unable to do anything but watch the unthinkable happen. It was just devastating. The call to 911 was frantic, almost incoherent. David, breathless and panicked, tried to explain what he was seeing on his phone. A home invasion, his wife in danger. He gave his address, his voice cracking with desperation. Every second felt like an eternity. Police were dispatched immediately, their sirens wailing towards Maple Creek. But David knew it was already too late. The live feed had stopped. The screen went black. The connection was lost. The silence that followed was more deafening than any scream. The digital window had slammed shut, leaving him alone with the horrifying images burned into his memory. He was racing home, but he was driving towards the end of his world. When the first officers arrived, they found a scene of disturbing stillness. The front door was slightly ajar. Inside, the house was in disarray. Signs of a violent struggle were evident everywhere. Overturned furniture, shattered glass, and in the living room they found Sarah Miller. It was a tragedy that would scar the community for years to come. For David, it was the confirmation of the horror he had witnessed just minutes before on his phone. The nightmare was real. The investigation began immediately. Detectives swarmed the property, their faces grim. The first question was simple. Who would do this? Sarah was loved by everyone who knew her. She was a kind soul, a devoted mother, a cherished friend. She had no known enemies. The crime seemed random, a brutal act of violence that made no sense. The police started their work, gathering evidence and interviewing a devastated David. He tried to recount what he had seen, the blurry figure, the struggle, the terror. His words were choked with grief, but he provided the first and most crucial piece of evidence. He had a recording. This case was different from the start. It wasn't just about fingerprints or footprints, it was about pixels and data streams. The central piece of evidence was not a physical object found at the scene, but a digital file stored on a server. The husband hadn't just found his wife. He had watched her killer live on camera. He held the key to solving her murder in his hands. This digital witness, a simple home security camera, had captured the truth. The investigators now had a unique and chilling task ahead of them. To analyze this unseen footage and unmask the killer hiding in the digital shadows. The world was about to see the crime through David our team's eyes. Sarah Miller was more than just a name in a tragic headline. She was the heart of her family and a bright light in her community. Friends remembered her infectious laugh and her boundless energy. She organized neighborhood block parties. She volunteered at the local school library. Her life was a tapestry, woven with threads of kindness, creativity, and love. Sarah was an artist, a painter who found beauty in the mundane and captured it on canvas. She had a unique ability to see the soul behind the smile, to capture the hidden stories in a person by TM's eyes. It is a cruel irony that a woman so skilled at seeing others would fail to see the danger that was quietly gathering around her own life, like storm clouds on a distant horizon. As detectives delved deeper, they started to hear whispers. The first lead came from Sarah's recent communications. They learned about an old friend she had been counseling, a man named Mark Renshaw. Another thread came from a seemingly trivial neighborhood dispute. The miller's neighbor, a reclusive man named Mr. Abernathy, had clashed with Sarah for months over a large oak tree. They had two potential persons of interest, but both motives felt thin. Police needed to untangle hidden tensions without a clear suspect or motive. The investigation was now centered on the grainy video file from David Iu on TM's security camera. The clip was short, less than 2 minutes, but it contained a lifetime of horror. The killer was a digital ghost. Present, unidentifiable. The team enhanced the video, sharpening the image, adjusting the contrast. They isolated frames. The attacker, average height and build, dark nondescript clothing, a hoodie concealing hair and face. Nothing to give them a tangible lead. Logs showed a stable connection until the camera was abruptly disabled from inside the house. The killer knew exactly where the camera was and how to stop it. That detail sent a ripple of tension through the team. This was not a random act. The killer had been aware of the surveillance. Either they'd cased the house, or, more chillingly, they'd been inside before. The investigation began to shift. Not searching for a stranger, but someone who knew the Millers. The digital ghost was not random. It was someone who had walked among them. Weeks turned into a month. Awa. The investigation treading water. The forensic results arrived, and only deepened the mystery. DNA under Sarah TM's fingernails did not match Mr. Abernathy. It did not match Mark Renshaw. For David Miller, what? An agonizing limbo. Suspended grief, and unable to fully mourn while the killer remained free. He rewatched the horrific phone video over and over. The case was growing cold. Lead Detective Miles Corbin sat alone in his office, late one night, the glow of his computer screen casting a pale light on the stacks of files covering his desk. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had missed something. Frustrated and unwilling to give up, he decided to go back to the very beginning. This time, however, he wasn't focused on the attacker. His eyes drifted to the background. It was then that he saw it. A flicker. A tiny, almost imperceptible anomaly in the corner of the screen, just seconds before the video feed cut out. It was a loose thread, and he was determined to pull on it. The digital forensics analyst, a young and brilliant technician named Kenji Tanaka, began to peel back the layers of the video file. He explained to Detective Corbin that what looked like a simple glitch was more complex. The server itself had been found smashed at the crime scene. Hard drives destroyed. The team had assumed the low-quality stream was the only surviving copy. Kenji proposed a new theory. The glitch Corbin had spotted might have been a signal from the local server itself. He believed, with the right tools, he might recover fragments from the damaged platters. Days in the clean room. Then, the call came. Kenji had done it. He hadn't recovered the entire video, but he had salvaged a small, uncorrupted segment. A few seconds, crystal clear HD. Crucially, it was a different piece of the timeline. A piece of the puzzle no one, not even David, had seen. The twist wasn't in what they saw, but in what they missed. Detective Corbin and his team gathered once more in the darkened viewing room. This was it, the moment that could change everything. The screen flickered to life. The image was startlingly clear. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a figure walked into the frame from the right. The person on the screen was not a stranger. It was not Mark Renshaw. It was David Miller. He walked directly up to the camera. He looked into the lens, his expression calm and unreadable. He reached out a hand, not to disable it, but to adjust its angle slightly. He tilted it upwards, towards the ceiling. He then stepped back, checked the new angle on his phone, and nodded to himself in satisfaction. The room was silent for a long moment. The implications were staggering. The twist was not that they had found the killer, it was that they had been listening to him all along. David Miller, the grieving husband, was not just a witness. He had been in the house. He had deliberately manipulated the camera, the star witness, to obscure the view. He had lied to them from the very beginning. The digital ghost suddenly had a face, and it was the face of the man who had reported the crime. The discovery of the unseen file blew the case wide open. The detectives immediately reconstructed the timeline. The metadata from the recovered clip showed it was recorded at 3:42 p.m. David's 911 call was placed at 4:10 p.m., 28 minutes later. The IP address logs told a different story. The signal was pinging off a Wi-Fi network originating from a public library just 2 blocks away from his own house. David wasn't miles away. Helpless, he was practically next door, watching his own horrific production unfold from a close, safe distance. This discovery was the nail in the coffin of his alibi. The procedural pivot was immediate and absolute. David Miller went from primary victim and witness to sole suspect. The investigation had been chasing a ghost he created. Now, they were hunting him. The most pressing question that remained was the identity of the person in the dark hoodie. The DNA found under Sarah's fingernails still didn't match David. The investigation led them to a surprising place: David's work. They learned that David had a uniquely close relationship with a junior programmer at his firm, a young man named Leo. When detectives brought Leo in for questioning, he was visibly nervous. The detectives took a voluntary DNA sample. The results came back in less than a day. It was a perfect match. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. David was not just a killer, he was a manipulator. He had used his influence and Leo's financial desperation to turn the young man into a silent accomplice. The true depth of his evil was finally, shockingly clear. The arrest of David Miller and his young accomplice Leo sent shockwaves through the community of Maple Creek. The trial was a media sensation. The prosecution methodically presented the digital evidence, piece by damning piece. It was a masterclass in modern forensics, where pixels and data packets spoke louder than any human witness. The jury's deliberation was swift. David Miller was found guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. The judge, calling his actions a breathtaking betrayal of trust and human decency, sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice, in its slow, methodical way, had finally been served. In the aftermath, a memorial was established for Sarah Miller. Friends and family remembered her not as a victim, but as the kind, creative, loving woman she was. The Sarah Miller case has become a landmark, a powerful lesson on the double-edged sword of modern technology. David Miller's plan was audacious, built on the assumption he could control the digital narrative. But the digital strings he pulled became the ropes that bound him. Police departments worldwide now use the Miller case as a training module. Detectives are taught skepticism and to always look for the story behind the story. Justice is not just about punishment. It is about honoring the victim by relentlessly pursuing truth, no matter how deeply buried or how cleverly hidden behind a screen. The unseen truths were brought to light, ensuring Sarah's memory is defined not by her husband's lie, but by the final, unassailable facts of her case.